All right, welcome to the new setup, temporary setup for JLWI 2000 reviews. We are doing our very first review of the new house. Now this product came in right before we moved out of the other house. We were in the process of packing. The layout or the setup for the review area was tore down before we set this one up. We still had to close. We still had to do a lot of things before we could move in the house, so it's been a while. But Broadway Limited has released the GG1 electric. This is a Pennsylvania Railroad locomotive, if you want to call it that, electric locomotive. Now this video goes out to little Timmy Hannum in Texas. He's a huge GG1 fan, but I'm going to unbox this. He's a viewer of mine. I'm going to unbox this and review it. And we're going to take a look at what you get in the box starting right now as I slowly get my mojo back of doing product reviews. And behind you is a bunch of open space as we begin the layout build. So soon we'll have trains running again in long quantities, but let's get into this review next. Man, I've really lost my review mojo. I just unboxed this without really doing anything, but didn't show you it coming out of the box, but that little packet of grab irons was on top. Limited warranty, 1 year, exploded parts diagram, GG1 default function settings. You can pause your screen if you really want to read up on that, and operator's manual. Now, I don't know how many of these are still in stock because it's running a little bit behind because of the move, but future reviews, I've got a new rule. If it hits my porch, it's going to be reviewed in about 3 business days by the time it hits my porch. So the review schedule is going to get a little sporadic. We do have more videos to catch up on, more reviews to catch up on before I can get to that point, but by the end of July we'll be all caught up. So looks like some plastic bracing and plastic wrap to protect the paint from the styrofoam. And you pull this out and you have the GG1. Now I do have my handy dandy turntable here, so we'll take a look at that on the turntable a lot closer in detail. As always, we are resetting, so any improvements you would like to see, just let me know, and if it's reasonable, I'm always up for improving, but we're going to look at the entire GG1 first. It's basically a mirrored cab on one end and the other, so it can go bi-directionally. So, the crews can get out, go to the other side, and change directions very simply. Now, before we do that, Broadway has placed some foam protection under the trucks, which I just left that one there, but that's now removed. But we'll talk about the ends here. Grab irons on the ends, and you have a metal coupler with spring-loaded coupler. You have a coupler cut bar that appears to be in place. Silver tipped end accessory hoses and brake line hoses there. You have 4876 on the side and classification lights that are just, I think, molded in non-operational, but we'll see. You get the pantograph, and these should be releasable. So there you go, spring loaded, pretty cool there. And on the top you do have some plating there with some rivet detail. The windows for the cab have kind of a reinforced bar going across them to keep anything from breaking the glass. I think it's like a safety bar, possibly for crews, not to peer out too far as well. I'm not sure exactly the purpose. As these older locomotives, I lose more of my knowledge, which I didn't have a lot to begin with on. But Pennsylvania is really nice and clear printed on the edge. You got a line going all the way down. You have a front indicator for which way the locomotive is going forward, a little F there. You have water and fuel oil also under Pennsylvania, which is clear and legible. Everything's beautiful on print. You got the pinstripes, the Pensy 5 pinstripes on there. And then more of the same on the other side. So it's pretty easy to review this locomotive in terms of details because we flip it around, and the only difference really from one end to the other is the fact that you have the forward indicator with the little F there. So I know even with 1080p HD, some people would like a closer look, so I'll go ahead and zoom in now. My camera's a little further away than I like, so you're going to get some jerky movements as I zoom in to take a look at this, but just panning, you know, back and forth to show you the details. Very heavy locomotive. I'm sure it pulls a lot just like Broadway does. And there's a look at the bottom. See, it has pretty good articulation. I think it can navigate 18-inch curves. And there are cab figures inside, if you guys can tell. It's a little hard to tell from this angle. Well, there you can see the cab figure center window, center of the center window. So those are the details and looks of the GG1. We also have LED lights, so bidirectional, so we'll take a look at all that in the operation phase of the review. Alright, we have the operator's manual here. We don't have a lot of space to run until we have a layout. So, Broadway Limited, you can simply move the locomotive to get it started. It's on address 3 default, or you can do an extended startup and shut down, which is F9. So we're going to do F9 so you hear that. When you start it up, this is an electric, so I'm not going to hear that much noise. But there is lit cabs on both ends. And we're going to go ahead and go through some sounds, just a few of them here. There's one for the bell. Two for the horn. You hear kind of that horn resonation sound going on. Kind of like an echo. 3's coupler slack, only when moving. So I just want to move, and there you got it. 4's compressor, electric arc when moving. Do you hear that? So that is the electric arc sound. 5 is ramp traction motors up, 6 is ramp traction motors down. And I think I accidentally muted it there too, because I hit 8. But anyway, 8 mutes it. 7 is pantograph up and down sounds. Cooling fans F10. So it's F10 there. And there's just a lot of sounds on this thing, all the way up to 28. Everything's used except for 24, so just a lot of different sounds on here. And you can definitely play them all, you know, essentially play with this locomotive and make it your own. So there's a quick overview of some sounds. We're going to go and run this thing. We already have to a certain extent. I'm going to start at 1 speed step. You can see how smooth that is already. 2 and 3. And you see at about 3 speed steps, the light turns off. And the reason the light turns off is because you're underway and cab crews are getting going. So I'm going to change directions here, and while I change directions, I'm going to go to 1 speed step. And we're going to check with the AccuTrack 2 speedometer what 1 speed step's registering. So 1 speed step on BLI is about 3 miles an hour. So you can change the configuration variables to be able to adjust that if you want really slow speeds. Some companies will set that out of the box so you have smooth running at a slow speed step like 1. But that's how that works in general. But Broadway Limited has really good, smooth drives a lot of the times. And, it's usually pretty fine even at a quicker pace. So, alright, this is all ready to pull test. I realize the scale's upside down, but at least you can verify that I'm not making things up. This thing pulls about 60 cars. It's about 4.0. It's dropping 3.7 at the moment. But it peaked at about 4.0 right from the jump. It's about 60 freight cars. But these are used in passenger operations, so I believe it's mostly passenger, if not completely passenger. So you have the ability to pull pretty much any passenger, prototypically linked passenger car, passenger train you want. And just so you know, this locomotive was passenger, but later on, the passenger service declined and they were transferred to freight service. So you could use it with either, but you're going to get a prototypically linked passenger train with 1 GG1. We'll check an MRA real quick on the wheel sets. Sorry, some of those are not in screen. I'm still getting used to my new setup here. But looks like so far so good with the wheel flanges and the clearance on the side. Got a little bit of an angle with those trucks, but everything appears to be good on NMRA compliance with the gauge here. Now I do want to show you something else because this is our first review in a while, and the locomotives, you'll forget a lot of things to do on these locomotives, when I'm going through the paces of the review. Now this also has a pretty good capacitor in it because I took the locomotive off the track and it lasted for about 4 or 5 seconds afterwards. Coupler height looks a little angled. I'll let you be the judge on that one. I think technically it meets compliance. It just looks like it has a little bit of a droop to it, which also could have happened in shipping. You might have to tighten up the couplers. That end looks a little low or a little high, but maybe, I don't know. That's why I let everybody be the judge, because I've had 2 or 3 people tell me the same thing on different couplers, like, no, that's on, no, that's high, no, that's low. So there you have it for both ends of the couplers on the coupler height. I'm going to call it NMRA compliant pretty much because it meets all the other NMRA compliance pieces without any issues. All right, we're going to weigh this and kind of wrap this review up. 27.4 ounces. So very robust at 776 grams, 1 pound, 11 ounces. So it's pushing 2 pounds for just this unit. And that's where Broadway Limited is just really amazing on pulling power and, engineering, because that's part of the mix for engineering a locomotive that can pull a lot is having good weight. But they go a step further and they do some magic voodoo on a lot of things. This one's probably on the lower end of pulling power I've seen, but Broadway Limited in general has insane pulling power on almost everything. Alright, so we'll wrap up on what I think of the GG1. I think it's a great locomotive. I think it runs smoothly. You can adjust CVs to be a little slower out the gate, but at 1 speed step it's moving on at about 3 scale miles per hour, so it's a good quip, but nothing too crazy fast or too crazy slow. And I think it sounds good, it looks good, it runs good, it has a capacitor in it, it's DCC and DC compatible. You got the sprung diaphragms here, or sprung pantographs I should say. So you can move those up and down for prototypical looking running, especially for those guys that really have the great detailed layouts with the wires running overhead. Freight passenger service, pull test is going to be able to do good on both. Probably era specific freight service, you're going to pull prototypical length consists and definitely fine on the passenger end. Like I mentioned, this locomotive was both. It was a freight locomotive and it was a passenger locomotive. And just to give you a little background, it was the Pennsylvania Railroad designed the GG1 as a replacement for the P5 Electric, which had proven inadequate in passenger service. So after the initial riveted prototype was built, Raymond Lowery designed the GG1 with a welded body and smooth curves. 57 of these 100-mile-an-hour locomotives were built in 1934 and 35, with another 81 built between 1937 and 43. But when passenger service declined in the 50s, that's when many GG1s were transferred to freight service. So later, GG1s were in service for Penn Central and Conrail and Amtrak and Jersey Transit. The last GG1, I think, retired in '83 after 49 years of service. And all of this came from the very depth of my brains. It was not written on the box. Absolutely not written on the box at all. So don't accuse me of reading off the box, because that wasn't the case at all. So anyway, that's it, guys, for the review. GG1, pretty cool. MSRP will be listed in the description or on an on-screen graphic, depending on how much time I take to edit. And thanks for dealing with the very long process of getting out of Omaha, Nebraska, and settling here in Zimbabwe. No, I'm just kidding. I've never really told everybody where I'm at, but most people can guess where I'm at now. So anyway, we are here. We're finally getting started, and by winter, you will see a fully established layout in terms of bench work, and track work will be well underway. And we'll probably have prototypical consists running in winter. So, with that said, thanks for watching. No run by yet. Coming soon, though. We'll see you next time right here on the channel. Take care.